In this video, we're going to take a look at the WIP ledger in Xero Practice Manager. Now, this is a really important part of the system to understand, as it is the underlying transactions that are occurring as you do timesheets and invoices and apply costs to jobs. Now, there are three types of work in progress entries. We have time, we have disbursements, also known as costs, or we have our invoices. Now, time and disbursements are both positive WIP entries. So if we do a timesheet of 2 hours with a billable rate of $200, we'd create a $400 WIP entry on that job. If we were to apply a cost, which could be a filing fee of, let's say, $100, that would be another $100 WIP entry that we'd have on the job. So all up on this job, we'd now have $500 of billable WIP. Now, invoices, they reduce work in progress. So any invoices are recognized as negative WIP entries. So we can either bill that $500, which would be a negative $500, which means we've got no work in progress on the job anymore. We might want to bill $400. In that case, we'd have either $100 remaining on the job to bill, or we can write that off. That's why this is so important, because if we're not billing all of our work in progress, we're writing it off. This gives us really deep insight into where we have inefficiencies in our practice. So that's a little bit of background on what work in progress is, and what we're going to do now is jump into Xero Practice Manager, and I'll show you how that works in practice. So here we are in Xero Practice Manager in job 1388 for Action Enterprises Limited. So if we scroll down, we can see our tasks on the job. We have annual accounts preparation, annual accounts review, and annual accounts finalization. And we can see our estimated times here of 12, 2, and 1, giving us 15 hours in total to complete this job. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add some time and costs and some invoices to this job and see how they look in the WIP ledger. Now, how you can access the WIP ledger is if you go to Reports and then down to Report Builder, create a new report, then you're going to choose a WIP ledger report and display it as a table and hit Create. This allows you to create a custom report by selecting items from here, creating filters, and then selecting who can view the report. But what I've done is I've already prepared one over here, so I'm just going to jump into this one here. So there we go. So I've got it all prepared, all of our information, and I've already put our job here 1388 in. So if I hit Preview Report right now, you'll see that there's nothing on this job. I've got all my headings here, but there's no WIP entries. So if we go back to my job now, I'm going to create a timesheet for 2 hours, then hit Save. If we go back to the WIP ledger and hit Refresh, you can see under the time heading here, which is how I have grouped and subtotaled this report, I've got a billable entry on the 20th of January 2023, which is today, by myself. Annual accounts preparation, I did 2 hours at $200, giving us $400 of billable WIP. Now if I go add another timesheet here, let's do another 3-hour entry. And then hit refresh again. You'll see here that we're starting to accumulate work in progress entries. So in total, we've done 5 hours with $1,000 of work in progress. Now let's go and add a disbursement to this job. So if we go to costs, let's create a filing fee. So I'm going to give a cost of 0 and put $100 as the billable amount, which means that we're going to have a full markup on it. $100 is our billable value of it, and hit save. You can see if I go back to my WIP ledger and hit refresh, we're going to have another grouping here, which is disbursements. So I've got a disbursement with a value of $100 and time with a value of $1,000, giving us $1,100 of billable work in progress on this job. Now let's look at how an invoice works. If I go to financial on the job, then go and create an invoice. If I go new progress invoice, I can bill the actual time and costs, or I can put in a progress amount. And I quite like this option here. Let's say we want to bill, we've got an agreed fee of the job for $1,500. I'm going to put in here is annual accounts fee. Then hit next. So now we're going to send an invoice here for $1,500 and hit approve. Excellent. So if we go back here and hit refresh, you can see now we've got an interim invoice here of $1,500. As we mentioned, invoices are recognized as negative work in progress. So we now have negative $400 of work in progress on this job. Now let's go and do one more timesheet entries. If I go and do another timesheet entry here, we'll call it finalization. We'll put 3 hours to it. Back to our WIP ledger and hit refresh. You can see in total we've done 8 hours on the job, $1,600 plus our 100 of billable disbursements. We now have $200 of work in progress on this job. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do what we call a WIP wash-up. We're going to take this $1,500 here and we're going to wash it up first against the disbursements, which will give us $1,400 remaining. The $1,400 gets apportioned across all these timesheet entries. And then what we're going to see in a moment is the invoice information and any write-offs that occur. So to do that, we go back to the job, go to financial, and then we do remove from invoice list. This is our WIP wash-up button. So if I click on that and then hit yes, you can see all the billable amounts are removed from our financial tab here. If I go back and hit refresh, we're going to see all of this information populate. You can see here that we have done our WIP wash-up on the 20th of January, and then we have invoiced $100 on this disbursement here. We've washed up this $1,500 invoice, and then this is the billable amounts this is the invoice totals that have been washed up against these billable entries. And you can see we wrote off $75 on this first entry, 50, and then another 75 on this last entry, gives us a total of $200 of a write-off. The reason we wrote off $200 is because we had $1,700 of billable WIP, and we invoiced $1,500, so when we wash up the job, there was $200 we were unable to bill, which becomes a write-off. So there's an introduction to the WIP ledger in Xero Practice Manager. It's a really important part of the system to understand because those write-offs are extremely insightful into where we have inefficiencies in our practice. So I encourage you, once you've got Xero Practice Manager up and running, create a WIP report using the report builder and start analyzing your jobs and really get familiar with how it works. So I hope that all makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video.